Hey everyone, welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. I hope everybody's having a delightful day out there so far. In this forecast, we're going to be talking about the update of La Nina. The Climate Prediction Center released their latest forecast here in October. We're also going to walk you through the rest of fall and winter and show you the big picture of what you can expect as we go through the fall and winter months, continuing here into 2025. So before we get to that, make sure to subscribe to the channel down below. The more subscribers we get, the better, because we get this video out to more and more people. Same thing with likes as well. Make sure to like the video down below. It helps out more than you know. And of course, you can always give me your comments, questions, and concerns. We'll get to those after the video. So let's currently look at the sea surface temperature anomaly out here. And where you look at that is the equatorial Pacific Ocean, just south of Hawaii. You can see this big blue blob of water from portions of the South America coastline all the way west here and just again to the south of Hawaii. And those blue blobs indicate cooler water temperatures. The orange and red blobs up here, for example, in the Northwest Pacific, indicate warmer temperatures that are warmer sea surface temperatures here. So what this means is basically we're cooling off the water, and that means La Nina conditions are beginning to develop. The warmer water obviously is El Nino, and a mix of both are ENSO neutral. So let's look here at the latest index. We're at negative 0.9. And we are actually right on the brink of weak La Nina status. We're still technically in neutral conditions, but as we go deeper here into the fall, later in October, but especially into November and then eventually December in the winter, we're going to start to see La Nina conditions start to develop and a lot further at that. So let's look here at the probabilities that were released by the Climate Prediction Center. That was released here a day or so ago, and you can see that they increased those odds here in the blue to La Nina all the way up to 71% chance there in November, up to 75% chance there in December. So that does indicate that La Nina conditions will start to develop the deeper we get into fall here, especially again later in October, November, and eventually into the winter in the December month as well. Let's look at what you can see, kind of a cookie cutter La Nina type pattern. You have that variable polar jet stream that lifts all the way up here into Alaska, and then drops more south and east through western Canada and into the northern U.S. While that jet stream is more persistent deeper into the winter, I think this could pull down a lot of cold air if this sets up, especially into the winter months. And it also coincides too with a jet stream out of the Pacific that brings some moisture up here into the Pacific Northwest. So some heavier snows would be expected in this setup here, especially for the Cascades, but even down here into some of those lower elevations. And then we see the jet streams a lot further north, right, across southern Canada, the northern U.S., so that takes away the moisture from the southern U.S. and also warms us up because drier ground heats up faster than wetter ground. So we see dry but also warm conditions across the desert Southwest here, Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, and that stretches all across portions of the Gulf Coast and up parts of the Southeast. And then wetter conditions where those two jet streams collide across the southern Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and in toward the Mid-South. So let's look here at a long-term average between 1981 and 2010, still very valid to this day, of weak La Ninas. That's where we're heading as we go into the later in fall and winter, is a weak La Nina. And you can see weak La Ninas bring cooler than normal temperatures across the majority of the lower 48 across the United States, especially out west, but especially here across the northern tier of the United States. And also a couple areas like New Orleans or even into the Mobile area in Alabama, kind of leaning more normal to above normal with our temperatures during weak La Nina episodes. And especially, again, this is averaging November all the way through February. And as we go through here and look at the precipitation now, again, this is an average between November and February. And you can see there actually is some wetter weather where we have those La Nina conditions from the Ohio Valley back down here toward Dixie Alley and then back toward North Texas. Driest conditions across California, especially Northern California, and also the Southeast coast here from coastal Virginia and Delaware all the way down here through the Eastern Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida. tend to be pretty dry during weak La Nina episodes. So let's take you back at the temperature anomalies that we have seen so far this meteorological fall, going all the way back to September 1st, 2024. It's been a pretty warm fall so far across the board, especially up here in southern Canada, but also in the northern tier of the United States. More of a normal fall here, so to speak, across the southern U.S. near the Gulf Coast. That's really because we've seen a lot of cloud cover and a lot of hurricanes down here actually keeping those temperatures at bay. But look at the precipitation, very stark contrast. The southeast has seen a lot of precipitation. A lot of that has been tied to tropical systems and landfalling hurricanes, but look how dry it's been starting to develop there in the upper Midwest into the northeast, but also the Great Plains, very, very dry. A little bit of some wetter weather across the Pacific Northwest, but overall pretty dry in the middle of the country and across the northern tier of the country since the start of meteorological fall. And here's the proof. Proof is in the pudding, folks. Look at here at the U.S. Drought Monitor that was dropped here this morning, and you can see drought is really starting to expand across the central U.S. We have moderate, severe, extreme drought starting to develop here. That extreme drought's in the red. Those maroon red colors, that's exceptional drought. And notice it's really starting to expand in those areas across the Great Plains, and we expect that to continue through the remainder of this October as we see drier conditions setting up. The tropical moisture will be continuing to remain further east into the southeast and off into the western Atlantic, and that will take away the moisture that is needed for the central and the southern plains. So let's look also at another dynamic here. This is the ice and snow cover currently across North America. There is a lack of it up here across northwest Canada, at least for this time of year. I know it's early October still and approaching mid-October, but man, we're not really seeing much snow cover here, even in those higher elevations, kind of running below normal to near normal maybe at times here across the portions of northwest Canada, Alaska, and up here toward the Arctic Circle. So what does this mean? Well, there's not much of a cold air supply. We also have a blocking high pressure system here in the orange, so that's really blocking a lot of the so-called cooler weather coming down from northern Canada, and there's really not much of it to be had up there either. So looking here at the height anomaly, again, we have a strong high pressure so far this October. That has kept our temperatures warmer. We have drier ground, so it heats up faster, and that's why we have warmer conditions across the Rockies and into the plains and even into southern Canada as well. And the cooler weather's further east where we have low pressure and landfalling hurricanes. It's going to keep our temperature anomalies on average a little bit cooler there for the month of October. Looking at precipitation here, it's been a dry month like we just talked about here. It's very dry. The tropics is really what's driving the precipitation here so far this month. I find no reason to believe that won't continue, although I think the second half of the month here, once we get past October 15th, I think we'll start to see more Pacific storm systems move in here with the jet stream. That could offer some precipitation across the Rockies, across the west, and some of those could spread into the middle of the country. That is yet to be seen. As we go into November, strong ridge of high pressure builds over here into eastern Canada that extends down into the central U.S., kind of a continuation of October into November. Cooler air across portions of western Canada up toward the Gulf of Alaska, and then again down here near the southeast coast, still watching for those tropical systems. This high pressure is going to be expansive in November, and I honestly do believe that if you're looking for cooler weather, for example, for Thanksgiving, it really looks actually warm for November standards across southern Canada and the U.S. this year. And in November, we're going to start to see an uptick in storm activity. I know it's been a slow start. It's been a very dry September, very dry October so far. I think that changes, especially the second half of November. We start to see more storm systems across the central U.S. And if we have enough cool air, especially at nighttime, we could start to see some snowflakes here across some of the northern U.S., but also some rainstorm systems across the middle of the country as well. Also of note, the western U.S. starting to get more active, northern California, Oregon, and even Washington starting to get more precipitation as we go deeper into the month of November as well. Going into December now, this is the winter months, and things start to change a little. The high pressure starts to weaken across Canada. We start to see a little bit more of lowering of the pressure underneath that across the southern U.S. That'll still bring mild conditions for December standards, but don't let this map deceive you. There will still be cold shots of air coming down from Canada, especially over here, the source region from Alaska, Yukon, Northwest Territories, British Columbia. That's going to travel southeastward into the Rockies and the northern plains. And while it may take a while, I think some of that colder air and some shots of it may start to come down further southeast into the lower 48, but less frequently than you would expect in December. Now, with that said, this map goes a little crazy with the green all across the United States. Just to take away from this, it looks like the eastern U.S. is more favored for precipitation, and also the northern U.S. as well. Even though it shows a lot of green in the southern U.S., with weak La Nina developing here, it's kind of a wild card. We could see wetter conditions in December. We could see near normal or below normal. It's kind of a wild card how much precipitation we truly do see across southern United States. And honestly, the main driver this winter will be a lot of different things. It's not just going to be the weak La Nina. It's going to be the MJO, the NAO, and a lot of the PDO out there as well here. So we have a lot of different factors driving this winter forecast. Now, with that said, we're only going to go to January here of 2025 because I did want to show you this. We have a colder shot of air, and a lot of the seasonal models have been showing this for a couple of months now, so this is interesting. And as we go into January, I don't know if it'll be the first half of January necessarily or the second half, but there are likely to be signs of a cold intrusion across the northern U.S. from Canada when we do lay down finally that snow and ice pack across the north part of Canada and Alaska. That will allow a foundation for that cold air to drop southeast into the northern U.S. and into the eastern U.S. And when that happens, it could get very cold and really start to get our winter rolling here into January. And you can see a lot of storm systems. Again, this map may go a little bit more crazy in the green, showing above average precipitation, but you get the idea. With La Nina, you'd be looking for that across the southern Great Lakes, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, down into the Mid-South here for those bigger snowstorms as we go deeper into the month of January. And we'll be tracking them for you right here on this channel. So thank you folks for watching this forecast. Hope you took a lot of information away from it. We're going to be updating this very frequently as we get closer to Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that. So make sure to come back, subscribe to the channel, turn on all notifications, just click that bell icon so you are notified for any videos and live streams we do in the future. Like the video if you did enjoy it down below. Leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. I'll get to those later on today, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day out there.